Welcome to another episode of the Shift with Elena Agar podcast. In this episode, I chat with Chris Bloomquist, and he comes in for an insightful conversation on the evolving landscape of AI and recruitment and the importance of genuine human connections in job seeking. Chris also shares his personal journey of career transitions, overcoming challenges, and finding fulfillment in meaningful work. Together, we explore the impact of technology on personal connections, mental and physical health, and the necessity of authentic communication in recruitment. So join us in these conversations as we delve into the complexities of balancing technology with humanity and the power of intentional choices that shape our futures. And as always, let me know what you think. Chris, welcome to the Shift podcast.
Thank you for having me. This is exciting.
It is indeed. You know what's exciting to me is because I feel like we're meant to do this because you and I live in a very small world apparently that we know we have similar connections and
Go
talk to
figure.
similar people, and it's although you're on the West Coast, I'm on the East Coast, so it's a small world, and I it's nice to be reminded of that sometimes, of how interconnected we all are.
Absolutely. You start getting into the intricacies of recruiting and talent acquisition. It goes from here to here really quick. So it's lovely
Yeah.
to be.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's dive in a little bit more into your career story. Computer engineering
Sure.
turned tech recruiter. A very interesting combination. Not a lot of recruiters come from the background they actually end up recruiting
Sure.
for. So tell me how all that happened.
Great question. And I would say, I think what most recruiters out there would say is that, no one says, hey, I want to be a recruiter when I grow up. They don't go to school for this. It's not something that's front of mind. We all kind of fall into it in different ways. So my journey was basically, I was a computer engineering student at Iowa State University. I knew I loved computers, and I thought, well, if I love computers, I have to be a programmer and I have to be an engineer. Like that just was my very narrow, myopic version of what the career path would be. And so I did my engineering, got my degree, and in the middle of doing that, what was interesting was I filled out that, the personality surveys that they give from time to time. They had that in college. I'll never forget, I was like in that 1 percentile quadrant of like no one else was like me. Very extroverted, very centered around feelings, not analytical. And
Hmm.
here I am getting a degree that's highly analytical. And I put that as a backdrop because that never really left me, even though I did become, I graduated my engineering degree. I became a software engineer, did a beta development, did some really cool things. And um, I wasn't happy. you know, Here I am with a lucrative, potentially career in front of me, with a degree I worked very hard to earn and was not, quite frankly, exceptional at it. I had to really work to get it. It didn't come easy for me. And two jobs, 4 years into my career, I thought, what am I doing? And in the meantime, people kept saying, Chris, why aren't you in sales? Why aren't you in sales? You love people. And these are my peers, my family, people with more wisdom than I that are 20, 30 years older. So finally, one day I went to my boss's office, who's now a client, funny enough, and said, hey, I can't do this anymore. I love working with you. I love our company, and I'm not happy. And so he had the wisdom at that time to tell me, Chris, don't become really good at something that you hate or that
Hmm.
you just
That's really good.
is really good wise advice, right? Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should, and it
Hmm.
includes your yeah, I'm capable of being an engineer. I don't love it. I don't love the journey of engineering and problem solving. I like the result, and that's 5% of the time. So 95% was miserable. So all that is to
Hmm.
say, I started telling the world, and this might help any listener. I started evangelizing on behalf of myself and my career. Hey, world. Hey, friends. Hey, colleagues. Hey, anyone that'll listen. I think I want to get into tech sales. Help me out. Or if you hear anything, let me know. And that led to a conversation with a an employee, a peer of mine in the sales department, saying, "Hey, Chris, have you thought about tech recruiting? My daughter does it." I'm like, I don't even know what that is, but I'm happy to talk with her. This is no five. And I'm talking to Michelle at Robert Half. She ended up becoming my coworker, my colleague for several years. But it launched me into a world that I didn't know existed, and what I found out was that very few of my peers had an engineering background. And it gave me a massive advantage from day one because I
Hmm.
understood my constituents as peers. I understood my clients as peers. I had empathy for how to hire. I had empathy for what it takes to prepare for a good technical interview. And these are my people. but
Yeah.
I'm still in the industry doing something completely tangential that leveraged my engineering, but didn't, I would say, require it on a day-to-day basis. Like, I needed the knowledge, but not the, I didn't have to do it every day. And it led to me finding something that I truly love and that I've become, I can say without ego, very good at, because I love what I do. And if you love what you do, you will become good at it.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. And it's you know what's interesting is that you at that young age, when you're, you said 4 years into jobs, right? And you were
Close
like,
one,
yeah,
yeah.
this is not what I want to do. Because a lot of people kind of get stuck in that grind and
100%.
the golden cufflinks, is that what they say? And you just kind of, so the fact that you
I have
you
to do this. My parents want me to. I got the degree. I
mhm.
have to do this for myself. Like, you don't have to do anything. The world's our oyster, right?
Yeah. Well, the
There's
fact that
choice.
yeah, I mean, the fact that you came to a conclusion or earlier in your career is brilliant because a lot of people don't. Usually they get to it, like later in life, and I call that a midlife crisis, right? Is because they like, come to it a little bit later, like, wait a minute, I should be
Well, I've had
happy,
that too,
but
but
I'm
that's a
not.
different story.
Yeah,
I feel blessed that I found that part about early in my life. Yes, for sure. And I had great leaders to help me with that, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah. The environment matters, of course. And then throughout all this, you've also had some personal challenges, right? So you had clinical depression. You also had cancer. Can you talk a little bit more about that? And how did you manage?
Thyroid, there's my scar. Thyroid cancer
Yeah.
about 6, 7 years ago now. But yeah, I guess cancer happened first. I'll talk about it first. I used to be in a rock band, and that was a separate part of my life that we're gonna have an anniversary for that this year due to the show. But the only reason I mention it is because if it wasn't for me over singing in my rock band, I would have never found out that I had thyroid cancer. I was having vocal issues. I couldn't speak.
Mm,
I couldn't do my job, quite frankly, to interview people. And so, I was really, the older I get, the more I really put my mental and my physical health front and center for myself, for my family, my kids, my wife, everyone, right?
mm,
And so I don't just accept not being well. And so I kept pushing to investigate, why am I having these vocal cord issues? And by doing so, very, very fortunately, accidentally found that I had thyroid cancer. And I had just had a physical like a week before with a perfectly clean bill of health. So, note to all viewers, get your cancer screenings, breast, thyroid, whatever it is, the stuff people don't talk about, but gosh, it's all about early detection. And so I very luckily had early detected on my thyroid cancer, had a thyroidectomy, and had to go through a couple different treatments, actually, radioactive iodine and whatnot. But the point is, I took charge of my health. Was also very fortunate to find out that I had this issue, and how it changes me is just when you go through life scares, you try to live in gratefulness, right?
mm.
You and I are here today. We're alive. We're breathing. We're
Yeah.
knock on wood, we're cancer free right now. We're our families are hopefully healthy, right? I really try to live every day absolutely to the fullest and being very mindful of everything to be grateful for and to be proactive on my health. And that leads to my wellness. So during COVID, I basically had a work divorce. I had to the first company I founded, Viri Technology. I was in a bad professional business relationship with my co-founder. He would say the same thing, so I'm not going to disparage that, but it wasn't a good fit for us. And so I had to go through the legal process of selling a company that I built. That
Mm.
sucked. That
Yeah.
was depressing. On top of that, it was affecting my marriage. I was in basically an abusive relationship with my co-founder, and I brought that home. I brought that home, and in not in the same ways, because I'm not my center isn't someone that's angry or that kind of a thing. But I drew inward. I got less and less communicative. It hurt my marriage. It hurt my kids. Hurt myself first and foremost. But it hurts everyone around you. And again, basically, my wife's like, "Hey, I can't live with you this way. You've got to go figure this out." So I went to therapy. And I got a therapist. Helped a little bit. I went to my PA slash doctor. She helped me a lot. Got a medication, and I slowly got out of it.
Mm.
And again, it came back to getting out of that. I'm grateful to be alive. I'm grateful to be healthy. I'm grateful to be well. And I think, try to bring that empathy to who I serve as candidates or clients, because gosh, we all have our demons. We all have our stuff. Life isn't a Facebook post say, "Hey, I'm in Tahiti," or my LinkedIn, "Hey, I hit my quota." That's not life. that's our outward projection of our highest moments, right?
Yeah.
Life is I have cancer. Life is I'm going through depression. Life is I just lost my company and I have shame. Life is I had to fire my
Hmm.
team and I don't know if they want to talk to me again. Life is all those things. You know, how often, Lena, do we post online, hey, by the way, LinkedIn, I just fired my team. You know, happy Thursday. We don't do
Yep.
that. You know, hey, hey, Facebook, I decided I'm gonna let everyone know that I am thinking about, committing suicide. I never got to that point, gratefully, but people don't post that, right?
Yeah.
Unless they're really, really desperate. So the other thing I try to do is just, and I think as a society we're better at this, but just talking about these things, being open, being vulnerable.
Hmm.
God, we're all living through the human experience. Why do we have to hide these things in secret silence and shame? Like, just be open and I mean, even I'm talking with you now, even though I've dealt with these demons before, I'm feeling my pressure go down. I'm
Yeah.
feeling my happiness go up. I'm feeling my self worth feel better because I'm not having to live with all these burdens on my own.
Yeah, it's I appreciate you sharing that so much because I think that in a world where business is very trendy and it's so, and people trying to make it so, that's the life, and it's not often like that, and it is very difficult, and especially, and I like it that you said shame, because that is a piece of you. That's how you feel when you're not doing well in your business. It happened, I felt the same, and I totally get when you're able to move past it and talk about it. Because when I started my first business in 2019 with my business partner, and we had a good relationship, it just didn't work out, the business didn't work out, but it took
Sure.
me probably until like this year 2024 to really be okay with the fact that it didn't go the way we expected it to go. So there was a lot of shame of it, of not, if it didn't, it just didn't pan out the way we worked so hard for it to, and we, what I'm saying, so to be able, I remember that whole year of separation as we were kind of parting ways. It took us like a full
Right.
year to really, manage our clients and let people go, and let our clients go, and like how do we creatively present this change to the world, right? Like there's so much shame that I carried with me, and I think it's very, I think a lot of people relate to it, because it's like, it's shame. You feel shame, and you shouldn't have to,
Shame, shame is the number one killer of progress and success.
Yeah.
It really is, and I want to mention that because it's such a good that powerful emotion is one that we need to really remove from our lives because in so many ways, and in business, I think about it because so many job seekers suffer in shame that I'm looking for a job and woe is me. You know, if you and I were to do a show of hands, what percent of your listeners or people that we've met have been unemployed?
Mhm.
100% of people raise their hands. Don't
Mhm.
tell me every single person on this planet's been employed 365 days of their adult lives. That's fantasy. It's not even healthy.
Mhm.
And so, why do we have so much shame around being laid off, being on the market? I honestly asked that. I mean, I could give some knee jerk answers, but I challenge everyone to say, remove that. We all have been there. We all know. I don't care if you're a CEO, a founder, a entry level person. We've all been unemployed. It's okay. And
Yeah.
actually, it's an opportunity. It really is to like reinvent yourself and say, gosh, what do I really want to do? Where do I really want to work? Who do I want to spend my time with? What do I
Mhm.
believe? Right?
Yeah.
And it can really be a rebirth instead of a shameful process.
Yeah. It's amazing how much our mindset plays a role in all that. You
Thousand
know.
percent.
And it's like, unless you're been through it, and it usually takes something drastic to happen in our lives for us to be like, oh, maybe I should focus on my mindset and my health, right? And so but it's
Right.
everything. It's the basics that are not so basics that we just completely forgotten about. What are some things you do right now to kind of focus on your physical, like what does that look like for you in terms of
Yeah. What
habits or
brings me joy?
routines? Yeah, what brings you joy?
I think I'd put it on the message, but I'll put the little, here's my little Lego man here. If we can see him, I'll have to unblur the
Yeah, it is
background.
coming.
But
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
there
there
you
you
go.
go.
There
Yeah,
you go.
almost
But
there.
I'm an adult Lego enthusiast when it's
Oh,
rainy
love it.
in Seattle. And I've actually built like a scale model of my house. I mean, totally geeky stuff. My wife's an enabler for that. She's an adult Lego, builder too, and that's just fun. But in terms of, I do a lot of physical things. So I was a long distance runner. I ran marathons in the past. Now I I run as much around with my kids as I do for myself. So I coach cross country. I run cross country. I play ultimate frisbee. Um, I make it a point though to do something physical several times a week. I'd like to do more, and I prioritize. In my mind, I have this like mental rolodex of who haven't I talked to, who haven't I connected with from a friendship standpoint in different
Mm,
circles, church groups, whether it be my tech recruiting community, whether it be my college friends, whether it be my family, my sisters. And so I try to just to be real and stay connected with them, make the rounds. I think we all try to do that at some level. Um, and I don't know. I think the older I get, the more I try to I call making deposits. But even if I take 30 seconds to remember my friend Janet in Iowa that I haven't talked to in a year and just say, hey, Janet, I missed you. Here's a picture of Olivia and the kids. Hope you're well. Take 30 seconds, right? Like those little moments, like the more older I get, the more I think when I'm thinking of someone, act. Quick LinkedIn
mhm.
message, quick text, but that little deposit, you don't know how much the other person appreciates that or needs that sometimes.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I just think it's important to, break up the day with being mindful and doing check-ins with people just because and you always get something out of it too. It's not totally kumbaya, it's self-serving. In your response,
Yeah.
you feel good. "Oh, I'm glad Janet's well," or, "Oh my gosh, Chuck is in need. Let's talk to later today. I didn't know you were hurting," whatever it was, right?
Mhm.
So, I do a lot of physical activity, I do a lot of check-ins, and I travel too.
Yeah.
I'm half Chilean, so I like to see the world when I can, and so I've been to Europe, I've been to South America, I've been to Central America. I need to go to Asia yet. Try to travel at least once a year, and I still see my roots in Iowa, and Nebraska, and get home. But yeah, I try to live a balanced life, and my new goals, Elena, are basically my record every year is I want to beat my own record for taking time off.
No,
It's
I
not
love
about
that.
finance or anything, but just quality of life. That's where I'm at in my career, my life.
Yeah, I love that. As a, as somebody who having experienced all the different ups and downs and having this mindset, is there something that you wish you would have known before you started you were a two-time founder, so you've started a couple of things.
Mhm.
What are some things that you wish you would have known back then? Any advice for anybody starting out? Um,
Absolutely. The two key ones, and this I'll say this for me because everyone's different on this, but I would never do it alone. Even if you're a solopreneur, don't just work by yourself. Work with other solopreneurs. Work with there's a community for everything, right?
mm,
So, thing that I've done well, I think, is never doing this alone. Like I knew early on that I didn't. There's parts of business like operations. I don't love it. I can do it. I'm not great at it. And so find someone that's completes your weaknesses. So I've
mhm,
done that. And I've done that successfully in both my companies. The two people I've uh, founded companies with very much complemented my weaknesses, and that was wise. What was unwise is don't just chase the opportunity. The first time, what failed is we did not have shared values. We did not have shared vision, and I let the opportunity of success, financial wealth, owning my own company, probably ego in there as well, all blind me to the fact that I knew from day one. I was looking at him sideways from day one, and I knew better. I knew better.
mm,
And don't let opportunity blind you. Like the root of you have to ask yourself is, why am I founding a business? What are my motivators? Are they in congruency with anyone else I'm doing this with? If you're doing it by yourself, it's easier. But if not, why am I doing this? Do they line up with your values, Mr. or Mrs. soon to be married business partner, because you're married to them, or your team? So, what are all those things? And then how we give them at the end in mind.
mhm,
If you start, everyone thinks about the beginning, and the beginning of any relationship, any business is all sunshine and roses. Right? Tell me about, when you have your biggest failure, how you're going to handle it. Tell me about 10
yeah,
years from now, you want to retire, how do you want to get out of it? Tell me about 5 years from now when your business partner, gets cancer and has to quit for terrible reasons. How are you going to end that relationship professionally, logistically, financially?
mhm,
Begin with the end in mind.
mhm.
I can hear my wife chiming in my ear because she's the one that helped me with that. And if I'd have done that the first time, I would have avoided some of the pain going in. But you learn, you adapt, and
Yeah.
I've done that really well. I think with a new company, a new business partner who's great. So
Mm. Yeah, it's again, I think it's very relatable. And when it's like when you're starting any new relationship, you're excited and you're dating and etc. But you forget to
All
ask the
fun and happy and
all
positive.
fun and fluffy, and then you forget to ask the important questions, and because it's like, well, it's not the best time. But I think in business, it's like, no, no, you have to, hash it out before, like, before you have to, type thing.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty powerful. Um, Something else you mentioned is around just really just kind of part of it is like also knowing your values, and I think your values change over time, and that's been a big one for me personally, a lot of people
Yep.
I talk to recently, because as you grow and your values change, and if you don't pause, then that you can create a lot of friction and you don't know why, and you're like, oh, it's my values, like that's what it is, I've
Or even
changed.
worse, if you know your values, you don't behave on them.
Oh yeah,
That's what
that's
happened to me in my prior company. I knew my
mm,
values and I let them get squished and I acquiesced and I acquiesced. And it killed me inside, which killed the business.
yeah.
He wasn't behaving on my values, which I knew better and was kind of forced, of course, not to go through. And that I would argue is just as bad, if not worse. If you know your values, stay true to your values and act on them and live in them. Don't budge on that.
Mm. Are there any other pivotal things that you've learned about yourself through this process?
Mm. Uh, yes. For me, I need meaning. I need variety. So I like the fact that 16 years into my recruiting career, I still get the variety of a little bit of fun if I don't know what I'm doing. Right? There's
Mm,
always a new position, a new technology. Like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, and that's exciting. I lean into it. It's thrilling. I don't fear it. Um, and also that I need to the value part needs to be I need to value my own time, which is why I set these personal records of time off and time away. And also I need to have meaning in my work that I'm not doing it just for me and just for my personal or my team's wealth, but for community. And so, basically 1/3 of my time and our mission is spent in community, where we
mm,
give our time freely and I think graciously and abundantly. So, one of the examples is right now we're trying to forge a relationship with a local organization in Seattle to help battle homelessness through employment, and so we're going to become employment coaches for the homeless.
mm,
Kind of our vision, and so I have that going on in the background. We have steps to make progress there, and I need that to feel meaning as well and feel like there's purpose to my work.
mm.
And that feels good, and there's no one's gonna say, "Oh gosh, you shouldn't help the homeless," or, "Hey, you shouldn't, spend time in community." No one's gonna say that, and I
Yeah.
think as a leader of my organization, it is really I'm very careful with my language and my actions because that enables my team to behave that way. And so if me and my business partner are showing our team, "Hey, we believe in this. This is a value. It's not just a thing in the website, but we act on this," then you get those behaviors from your team members and they're supportive with it as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was just talking to somebody this morning, I think, about it. And it's like there's a lot of talk out there in the world of talent development and leadership, and everybody wants these employees that are doing X, Y, and Z. But what are you as a leader practicing, and what are you showing? Is
1000%.
I mean, that's where it's at, right? Like as kids, we learn by watching, and somehow we forgot that as we grow older, and we expect people to do things because we told them to, but innately us as humans, it's just not how we function. So just
Not
because you're older doesn't mean you're any different, really. I mean, you're still learning. That's the best way to influence other people, is to be that person, right?
My children taught me that. I mean, I try to run my company from a parental lens oftentimes, which is like, if it were my children, how would they want to be treated and spoken to and inspired? And if we think about that as business leaders of um, treating not so much like family, but having a parental child relationship to like of care, concern, of well being, of setting a good example. Um, I think that's how you find success.
Hmm. I want to shift a little bit towards
Sure,
the world of recruitment, because I mean that's a
absolutely.
whole. I think that could be a whole podcast topic on its own. But you having been in recruitment 16 years, there's a lot of talk in recruitment, a lot of things happening with AI, especially in technology and recruitment, like technology roles and so on. what is, from your opinion, kind of opportunities we have right now
Sure.
as candidates or as organizations, challenges? What do you see? What are you experiencing?
AI. Just because we can do something doesn't mean we should.
Mm. Tell me more.
I'm of two minds. I'm going to tell the audience I think my demographics are important. So, yes, I have a computer engineering degree. Yes, I've been a software engineer. And so, yes, I understand the value of automation and, making lives easier for people fundamentally. That's why we use computers, make lives easier, period. Um, I'm also, 47, closer to 50 than 40. And there's parts of me that want to chuck my phone in the water and just go live in the woods and divorce myself with technology completely because it's killing our souls, right? And so I'm of two minds when it comes to AI. Here's an example. Just in the last 2 weeks, Elena, I've had
Mm,
3 different companies unsolicited find me, AI companies, specifically in recruiting. Every one of them had a very similar goal of, hey, Chris, how great would it be if you could basically fire your recruitment team, hire our bots to fake the recruitment process because obviously that's an automated task. You don't need humans to do that. The pre-screening questions, you don't need to do that. You can have bots do that. Save time, save money, make more money. I wanted to vomit. I just thought it was so disgusting because ultimately recruiting fundamentally is a service. And it's a
mm,
premium, expensive, costly, and should be valuable service. I am not about to give a service oriented industry the insult to a candidate or a client that I'm going to automate service. Because as much as we can do with AI to say, it sounds, you can emulate our voices. We can have, we've got already LinkedIn's got our own avatars that are this fake representation of ourselves that look perfect, even though our photos are flawed and doesn't show I've got a mole here or whatever, right? We can do all this fakery. Okay.
mm-hmm,
Just because we can doesn't mean we should, because I just think if I'm a buyer, if I'm a hiring authority and I know that my recruitment firm is doing everything automated, well, what was that person like, Chris? Tell me about how they responded. Tell me about how did they connect with you? Tell me about how that person, you know, um, asked really good questions that were insightful. How did they, what was their interest level? Why, like, we can make scripts all day long, but I'm sorry, I'm not going to give AI the chance to try to build connection because by definition you can't. It's
mm,
fake. It's a machine. It's a computer. And that's not why people hire me or my team. They hire me to say, Chris, and the talent mind, I trust you. I trust your judgment. I trust your ability to on the fly change the level of questions or the line of questioning because something didn't seem right about their answer. I'm going to go dig deeper there. Or, wow, they bring something to the table that is not evident on the resume that is so amazing and makes them, they're going to love you at this client, even though it's not on a requirement sheet because I have enough EQ to know what I'm talking about.
mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, you guys are both Chihuahua lovers. Chuck, Jane, it's not relevant, but talk about Chihuahuas in the interview. Bring that up, and it'll light up. People want to connect. You
Yes.
cannot connect with AI. And as I say this, I fear that innovators, engineers, who are my peers, would disagree and say, yeah, you can. You can do a script for this, a script for that. That is not connection. I had a company a year and a half ago that came to me, and I'm just going to say they're a couple of programmers. They wanted to make a bunch of money, and all their communication was about money and revenue. It was disgusting. Doesn't resonate with me at all. And the punchline was it was an AI company to create a fake, person that you could build a relationship with if you were lonely.
Mm,
Where are we as humans where we are so we have more and more ways to connect, yet we feel more and more disconnected. And the band-aid is let me just punt and build a connection with fake.
mm-hmm,
It's disgusting. Get out of our houses. Go ask someone out on a date and get rejected.
mm-hmm,
Go meet a friend in person and have a beverage. Go see your parents and give them a hug,
mm-hmm.
right? Life is not here with texting and fakery. I have to have conversations, Elena, all the time. I know I'm going to But I had to tell my two tween daughters about how to recognize fake and reality because it's getting more blurred and blurred all the time. And me
Yeah.
as a computer engineer, degreed person, I know how much fake is out there, and I have a hard time discerning what's real.
Mm,
It's scary.
yeah.
So all that is to say, I got on this big rant on this. We as service providers need to really focus on how to connect, how to build trust, and we can use AI to automate the things that don't require that. Writing a job description. I've used ChatGPT for that. I've seen that works perfectly. I edit it. We're done. We're good. Writing a
Mm-hmm.
contract, boilerplate, non-emotional. It's got the legalese perfect. There are ways to
Mm-hmm.
use AI in automation, just like a calculator that are trusted and true and don't require a level of EQ needed to use it. That's in my mind how we should be leveraging the tool. We can create better communication, faster communication, but that still is authentic without losing that very fine and important line of actual human connection.
Mm. Yeah, I tend to agree on most of what you're saying, and on the part that I uh kind of disagree about, but it's not even disagree, it's just almost like I think it's just going to
I'd love to
happen
hear.
whether we like it or not. But I'll tell you,
Right.
on the things that I definitely agree on is that there needs to be a human piece to recruitment. And having been in recruitment myself, and also working with a lot of kind of candidates and individuals, what we miss the most as companies is recognizing a person's potential, and that goes through conversation. And I think in a world where, with new jobs coming on the market, with job market changing, and just the world of work is just changing all the time,
Sure.
some of the things that people have done in the past based on their resume, or whatever information is out there about them, is not going to be relevant. And it's only going to be relevant if person talking to, like, a recruiter or an agency talking to that candidate and being able to get that out of them, or the person who is able to sell themselves and reconstruct themselves in a way that sells to this new area they're trying to go into. And most people are bad at doing that, which is where a good recruiter is able to pull that out and make the connection, and
Thousand
look
percent.
beyond the resume. So I do agree that that human piece needs to be there. I think the reason resumes don't work half the times because, again, it's a tool, it's just a tool, but we need to have that
It doesn't tell
conversation.
the whole
it
story.
it
Yeah.
doesn't. And nobody, and like I said, a lot of people are not good at telling the whole story, so you have to have that conversation and establish that connection. Where I think that, again, not that I disagree, but I think it's just inevitable, is the idea of uh, robots, AI, whatever you want to call it, coming into our personal lives. You know why? Because a lot of the younger generations, and now, a lot of the younger kids that are gamers, they're already living in this virtual world. And I'm completely against it. I'm like, I mean, I was lucky enough to grow up where where you go out in the sand and dirt, and your mom is like, just come back when the sun sets.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
And
yeah.
then
Come
she's
back for dinner
screaming your
time.
name out of the window. So, like, and I'm like, Mom, how did you let me do this? I could have been kidnapped, I could have been killed. You know what I mean? Like literally, we'll be gone all day. Our parents will have no idea where we are. We grew up in a different world. And I
We did.
think the kids these days, becoming more, a lot of the Gen Z is like, to your point, it's like we have so many ways to connect, but we're becoming more introverted, right? And kids are really impacted by social media, which is like a whole other topic that we can definitely spend whole other podcast talking about. But I think the demand is going to be there. That's what I'm trying to get at, is that the demand for that, personal relationship with a robot, the demand for living in a fake world is going to be there, because it's going to be easier than having to connect in person. That's what I'm
I'll,
afraid
I'll
of.
I'll give you it's a fair fear. I'm going to give you a 60-second, try to make it a minute and we'll move on. A kind of analogy. So I've heard this years ago. It's a Native American kind of a story, but the short of it is, a child is asking their parent, about how to make good choices and how do you know what's good or bad, and the parent says to the child, it says, well, there are two wolves. We all have two wolves. The wolf of dark and the wolf of light, the good and evil, however you want to look at it. There's two wolves.
Mm,
And, ultimately, if you want to figure out which wolf to act on, it's going to come from which wolf do you feed.
mhm, mhm.
If you feed in or cave into, you know what? Quick and easy. Quick and easy, quick and
Yeah.
easy, quick text, quick message, whatever, quick and easy, quick and easy, quick and easy. That's the wolf that's going to grow and that's the one you're going to become.
Mm.
I try as much as possible with my own flaws. When I do feed the bad wolf, I try to feed the one of light. That's the one that if you feed it enough with intent and with choices, and the choices being I go see someone in person, I tell my daughters about how to avoid fake, I tell my kids to get off the tablets, go outside and play frisbee and connect with them, you know, that's the wolf of light that comes out. It's the
Yeah.
wolf that we that's the one that wins. And if you and I would say this in terms of the plus side on humanity, if you and I are fearful about these things because we don't like it, and we choose to feed the good wolf in that, you and I are
Mm.
talking, we're connecting, we're doing okay. We're doing
Yeah.
okay. And I think as I'm talking with you, I'm like, you know what? I think most people fear this world, which is actually really good because then I have faith that if we fear that outcome, then we're not going to try to feed that outcome. We're going to try to go the other way. I think I think there'll be I think there'll be more of a divergence of there might be two kind of forms of society where one gets more automated and sadly, maybe feels more disconnected. And I think the parts of our society that go more for connection and more, service, I kind of feel like this is an opportunity for really great service providers to really shine and say, you know what? We choose to be real. We choose to not automate. We choose to actually make a little bit less revenue and
Mm.
do higher quality work. And we're going to draw those kinds of people to us. My experience in business and life is that when you choose those things, those kinds of people, those kinds of clients, those kinds of buyers come back to you and you work with the right people that
Yeah.
value that as well.
Yeah, no, you have an excellent point. I tend to operate in the same level in terms of like I try to just create the life that I want to be in, create the
Precisely.
environment that I want to be in. I was just talking to my partner about it this morning, and I showed him something this company is doing. He was like, "Well, why would anybody pay for this?" And I was like, "You're not their audience. I'm their audience. I would
We're not
pay for
talking
this
to
thing.
you.
We're not. They're not talking to you. So to your point, there's an audience,
Absolutely.
and I think that to your point, like if you're leading in a certain way and you're focusing on that light, then you'll attract the right kind of audience who sees the value in you and who will invest and so on. So and I do think that there's going to be a very I would say it's probably going to be a lengthy transition period to where AI is going to do all those things that the people on the other side think it's going to do. And I think this is going to create a lot of space for great service and quality service, right? And to your point, because I think on the AI side, I think there's just a lot more to be done. There's a lot of things that are still unclear, especially in the world of recruitment and so on. So and just talent organizations. I think there's just a lot more that needs to be done, and depending how fast it happens, I think people that are going to jump on that ship too soon, and they will because there's early adopters,
Too
right?
soon, too strong. I mean,
You know,
I go back
so,
to there is a place for all of this. I understand that.
yeah.
I know that if if I don't, adapt, I'll wither away. And so I know there's ways I will leverage these technologies. And I'm
Mm,
going to be extremely intentional and careful on how, and never at the detriment of connection
yeah, yeah. I
and
I
authenticity. Yeah.
Yeah, you speak my language. I say this all the time. I said in a world where we know more about health and well-being and wellness and connection and have more opportunities to connect, we are more unhealthy, more disconnected, more lonely, more unhealthy, yeah, et cetera, et
Fundamentally,
cetera.
why, right?
It doesn't make sense. Like it's like there's
Right.
more stuff and then we're less of all those things, it seems, so and yet everybody's selling a magic formula which apparently doesn't work, and maybe because there's no such magic pills, and maybe we just need to do the hard things sometimes, right? So
Absolutely.
not the quick fixes. So I have before we kind of wrap up, I do want to ask you
Sure.
from a candidate perspective, um what are some top, I mean, and how does a candidate stand out these days? What are the qualities that companies look for these days? Leaders, what are you seeing?
I'm going to put this back on the candidates in a good way and say that everyone should slow the blank down.
Mm,
Um, so if I'm talking about quality and I'm talking about my service to a client and slowing down and being more authentic, and I have 45-minute interviews with each candidate. I like to know who they are, how they're motivated, their families, whatever. And my whole team does, not just me. That's our brand. Um, I would challenge a candidate to put the same amount of time and care in their job search yes, you can do the volume thing. You could submit 100 resumes, and then you can bash your head against the wall at the end of the day because resume feedback is almost nil. Here's a general statistic: 5% of all jobs are landed through an online application alone. 5%. So for every 100 application you sent, maybe there's a 5% hit rate on getting that job if you just submit online. It's demotivating. It's demoralizing. It gives you no feedback. You get an automated reply. We try to do an automation automation for a second. We actually have automated replies that say, "Hey, my name is Chris. You're getting this automation on behalf of me, but I'm going to look at your resume. And while I'm doing that, here's some interview prep tips while we got your application to help you in your job search, regardless of whether you and I work together." Right? We give them something. So, but the point is, slow the heck down. When you reach out to a company, and the way I've landed my jobs, I've had 16 jobs in my career. I've applied for one. Okay. I should tell the audience something. And that was for an entry level job at Best Buy for $10 an hour, and there are a
Mm-hmm.
thousand applicants for 100 jobs, and I was lucky to get it. All the other 15 jobs were either created for me or by me.
Mm-hmm.
Telling the world, hey, world, friends, family, whoever that would listen, new person that met me on the street, nice to meet you. This is who I am. I'm on the market for these things. FYI, right? And then stuff starts coming back to me. Oh, this startup I heard of, Chris, is actually looking for a recruiter. You should talk to them. They never had a position posted. That was all to source.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hey, I heard that Tom's looking to build a tech recruiting firm. That wasn't posted. That was my soon-to-be new business partner that I ended up doing business with, right? So it's about self-evangelism. It's about it being intentional. When I write messages on LinkedIn to someone I don't know, I give them a reason to know me. Hey, we both went to Iowa State. Go Cyclones. Hey, we're both in recruiting. Nice to meet you, Elena. Hey, I see we both took machine learning certification course from Harvard's online course. I'd love to learn more about how you're applying that in your job, Mr. or Mrs. hiring manager or soon to be peer. Can we chat for 10 minutes? I want to learn more
Mm-hmm.
about you. Make it about the other person. Make it authentic. Slow down. I tell all my job seekers, I would rather you see 3 to 5 max really targeted, meaningful messages a day to people at companies that you want to work at, and don't even bother with the online application, which gets oftentimes missed.
Yeah. No,
Application is
spot
an
on.
after the fact, not the leading thing.
Yeah, it's just a formality. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I
That's a
also,
huge one.
yeah, I hear so many stories about candidates who got denied by ATS and then they got recommended via internal networks and so on by somebody else and ended up getting
1000%.
hired and being great in those positions. That should tell you something. It's yeah, no, it's I'm with you on that. Before I ask you
Make
my
new
last question,
connections.
huh? Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Before I ask you my last question, I wanted to ask if you can share where you hang out at. Where can people get in touch with you?
Sure.
Maybe on LinkedIn, or where's your most eligible place to find you?
Yeah, so LinkedIn is a great starting point. I do live and breathe on LinkedIn like most recruiters. It's necessary evil until there's something different. It works fine, so I'm there. Um, and I do go to in-person user groups though. There's you can also find me doing some more volunteerism at the Katie Hall Foundation. I'm a board member for them. We elevate women and young girls in their lives, whether it be in career or education. I also I go to Cafe Mox to do board gaming. It's a cool little board gaming place in Seattle, but I would say my main online presence is in LinkedIn, and then I do a lot of in-person networking. And a little tip I'll give for the audience, find communities that you're passionate about. One of them that I'm passionate about is combating climate change, and so I got involved with the workonclimate.org community. It's free to join. There's a great Slack channel that's active, and if people want to get into climate work from any background, they have success stories on how to do that, and I'm there sometimes as well. So, and then lastly, just for fun, because I'm a big baseball fan as well, my Twitter handle is Turbo C3PO. It kind of combines the fact that Turbo C was the first compiler I was on. I used to be a runner, and I'm also into Star Wars, and so that's another way you can find me as well as through I guess my X, not my Twitter handle. So there you go.
Yeah, I'll make sure to include all that in the show notes. And I find it funny
Sure.
that we can't get used to X. Like nobody, like so many people like X. Like everybody's like Twitter. It's so funny. Like we know it's X, but we're gonna keep calling it Twitter. Like everybody knows what we mean, but we're gonna keep calling it Twitter. Like
Elon's nuts. We'll let him call it what he wants.
yeah, like call it whatever you want, do you, but we're just gonna keep it Twitter. Like it's just so funny because I don't know anybody who's like X. Like most 90% of
No
the time
one
people like
says X.
Twitter. Yeah, it's crazy. It's so interesting. So the last question I ask all of my guests is,
Sure.
what is one question you wish people would ask themselves more often?
Would ask themselves more often. It's a Simon Sinek quote, but know your why.
Mm,
Why do you get up out of bed? Why do you have the friends that you do, or who you're with? Why do what drives your purpose at work? Um, the best part of that for me has come out with, I think, my children and in my work, where I pivoted how I parent, I pivoted how I do business, who I do business with, by really knowing my why, and then in addition, acting on it. And
mm,
not I know my why and my purpose is centered around employment, because employment is so central to people's lives. When you have employment, it helps with fulfillment, with providing, with self-worth,
mm.
with, and it doesn't all have to hinge on it, but man, it's a good place to start. And the other thing I'd end with is, there is power in working. And that means anything. I've had jobs where I'm doing stuff completely, out of my comfort zone, way below market. I've done grocery store work. I've done farm work. I've done all sorts of crazy things that have nothing to do with my professional career, because in times of transition, I found worth and meaning just by doing work. And I can't tell you how many times it's opened up doors I would have never foreseen or had the opportunity to go through had I not chosen just to work. There's no shame in work, no matter how big or small, whatever the pay rate. Go find work, go find joy, go find meaning.
I love it. What a beautiful way to end this conversation. I appreciate you. I love this conversation. I thought there was a lot of great takeaways for the audience, that was relatable, inspiring in many ways, and just and practical in many others. So thank you.
Thank you, and it's been a pleasure being on your podcast.